Okay, we're going to start up again. So in this next hour, we will be covering quick CMAs, statistical CMAs, and how to use the stats dashboard. Just give me a second to get loaded. Okay, so in the first hour, we covered the full CMA, which had a subject property. Now we're going to do a quick CMA. So the two examples I use for a quick CMA is it's a great way to use it as a cover sheet if you're going to open houses. So what I mean by that is if you decide to go on Saturday to 4 open houses with your client, you print out 4 listing reports. You know, by the time they look to the third one, they're going through the different sheets trying to figure out what has what. As a cover sheet, it's a great idea, and it will even have your branding on it on the front page, so they have an idea. Oh, okay, this side by side, this is what these things look like. And then the other way is if you have a client that knows, okay, maybe they want to live it in a certain neighborhood, and there's just a bunch of active listings right now, and they want to see everything side by side, you can do a quick CMA for that. So to go into quick CMA, we're just going to start a quick search right up here. And there was a question the last hour. How do you open up these menu items into a new tab? You can just right click it like this quick search, open the link in new tab. Just give it a second to load, and then it will open that up into a new tab. So you can open things up in a new tab from the quick launch bar. So for example, I were to type in hot sheet, I can go over to the right where it says new tab, or I can right click these menu items right here. So we're just going to do a quick search. And so I'm going to find some listings that are active. Now, normally what I would do is I would go down here for open house date and then use that as an example. I don't know if there's actually any open houses right now because of coronavirus. So we'll just kind of work around that, and we'll do the subdivision of Cherry Tree Park. I believe there's some active listings there. Okay, and then we'll do Cherry Tree Park South. There we go. We got 5. So let's say these 5 listings all have open houses on the weekend, and you want to send your client that quick CMA, that cover sheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to do just like we did before in the first hour. Go up to CMA, excuse me. Go to use all results or select, maybe I said I want to do that file. Use all the results. And then we see the full, we see the quick, and then we see the statistical CMA. I'm going to do the quick CMA right here and click on next. So what you see here, these settings are not the settings that I'm going to use for the quick CMA. It gives you some basic ones, but I want the cover page. And that cover page is going to add my profile photo. And then it says side-by-side comparisons of all listings, side-by-side comparisons by status. These are all active, so that doesn't really mean anything for me. I don't want a statistical summary, so I'm going to remove that. And then I want to add detail reports. Now, I could do the full report, or I could decide and change this to, say, a summary report. Personal preference, maybe I know my client wants to see all the information, so I'm going to keep the NWMS full report, and I'm going to do the public report. Because if I were to do the private report, that's going to have the other agents' information, commission rates. So you have the private information. So I got the cover page, side-by-side comparison, and then I have some listing detail reports. So I'm going to click on view right here. And so we basically see, you know, the cover page is just this little information here, but it has my photo and my information. So they know exactly where they got this from. They got this from me, Chewy. And then you'll notice for the comparable properties, on a full CMA, you would normally have 4 things that go across the screen. You'd have the subject property, then the comparables. Here, because we're just comparing listings, there's no subject property, and it gives us all the information. Now, you'll notice it says price. Our default template we created in the first class, it's going to create that default template. So if you wanted to do a different template, you would switch back to the subject tab and change that. I'll show you how we can do that. But this is all, basic information. And so it gives information like the days on market, which is kind of interesting here. So some of these days on market for these ones are quite a bit higher than what we were looking at when we were dealing with Brayburn subdivision. And then it has the full reports following it, but the public version of the full reports. So I view that. I always like to view things first, and then I can download it. I'm going to create a PDF file. And we'll open this up where I can save it. So we'll take a look. So here's the information. This is basically kind of that cover page. It has some information about those properties side by side. And then it has a breakdown of each individual property because we decided to use the full report. Okay, so let's go through that process one more time. So for the purposes of the QuickCMA, we are comparing listings side by side. So our two examples we're going to use for classes, one is when you're looking at open houses. You want to see, there's 4 or 5 open houses you want to see on the weekend, and you want to put a cover sheet, the houses side by side, so your client has a better idea what they're looking at instead of just looking at those full listing reports. Then the other example would be we just want to see, all the active listings in a certain subdivision. So we do that as well. So let's do a quick search. And maybe this time we'll do actives and pendings, and we'll go back to subdivision. Try Cherry Tree South. See how many we have. We have 2. Okay. We'll try Cherry Tree Park South. So now we have up to 16. So maybe your client is just, a lot of those are already pending. So that's good. That'll give your client an idea that maybe things are moving quickly here. So we got the 16. We're going to go up to CMA. Use all results. We're not going to do that full CMA because we don't have a subject property here. We're just giving our client some information. So we're going to do the QuickCMA. Next step. I'll do a cover page, and then I'm going to do just the side by side. And I'm actually not going to include the full report. Maybe I just want to send my client or print off something. Say here are the 16 that are active here. Do you want to take a look and narrow it down? Which ones are you interested in? So maybe they might circle 4 or 5, and then you end up sending them reports for the those 4 or 5. So just do the cover page, the side by side, and not do that statistical summary. Not really doing stats here. We're just taking a look at some properties, and then we are going to view. So we have our profile photo because we've uploaded that, and then now we're just comparing those listings side by side. So I can even go to print this right now, or some people will have on their computer, they'll have a driver that the Microsoft printed PDF. So whatever is on their screen, they can actually generate a PDF from that. They don't have to use FlexiBus. The printer will actually do it. So that's kind of a cool thing. So you could print this out for your client when you meet them. This is what's active in the neighborhood you're talking about. Maybe you're meeting for coffee, and take a look at these properties and like, which ones do you like? And maybe they circle 4 or 5. Okay, well, I'll reach out to those people and see if we can get some open houses. All this coronavirus stuff goes away. Okay, so that is the QuickCMA. That's pretty easy to do. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a statistical CMA. Now, statistical CMAs are basically for number crunching. You want to get an idea of what something goes for. So a couple different ways to do this is you could look at all solds in the last year in Cherry Tree Park, and then you want to see, okay, this is what the 2 bedrooms go for. This is what the 3 bedrooms. This is what the 4 bedrooms. So it gives you an idea of what things are going for. The other example I like to do is I like to look for everything that's sold in the last year or the last 6 months and then break it down by subdivision. So I'll explain a little bit more when we do that. But we're just going to click on quick search right here. And then, okay, we're going to do quick search, and then we will go to, well, it's just select everything active, after contingent, pending, sold. I'll go back 6 months. And then we're going to go for the subdivision. We'll do Cherry Tree Park. And this gives us 4 results. We can go back, just get a number tired. Now, once you do the statistical CMA, once you get above a certain amount, you can actually do the other types of CMAs. So I'll show you what I mean. So we have 72 results. I'm going to go up to CMA. We're going to use all results. And so I'm not going to choose the first one or the second. I'm not going to do the full CMA or the quick CMA. I'm going to do the statistical CMA right here. And I believe it's above 150 listings, you can only do a statistical CMA. When we look at all the closed and everywhere, it'll show you that. So do the statistical CMA and click on next step. And I don't want individual listing information. For those of you who are curious, this is where appraisers do the Fannie Mae 1004MC. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the median calculation, because I really like looking at median numbers, because in some areas your averages can be really skewed by prices that are priced way low or way high. So I like to use the median. And this is the important thing on your statistical CMA, is this right here. And this I want you to write down. Statistical CMA, group this statistical CMA by. Now, a lot of people, if they just keep it at status, it'll show the breakdown for active with contingency, pending, sold. That's not what we're doing here. We're breaking this down to something that makes sense. So we're looking at everything in Cherry Tree Park in the last year, and I want to see the breakdowns by beds. So what does a 2-bedroom house go for? What does a 3-bedroom house go for? What does a 4-bedroom house go for? I find that's a pretty interesting thing. So we're going to click on beds, and then we're going to click on view. So we see just 3, 4, and 5 beds. So what is your median price? 211, 229, 298. So there's a huge jump from 229 to 298 from 4 to 5 beds. Now, what can you do with this information? Well, we notice that there's 48 listings and 18. There's a decent amount of listings between 3 and 4 beds. And you may have a client that says, hey, I want to add another bedroom, and then before we sell the property, we want to redo a bit of remodeling. You can look at these numbers and say, look at the median, like that's only an $18,000 difference. It's going to cost you more than that just to add a new bed. Is it worth doing that? You might run this for bedrooms, garage spaces, other things to kind of get an idea. Okay, if you need to plug in some information, what would it be worth? This is where RPR is really powerful. Is RPR will actually show you what the cost is for doing adjustments or like remodeling and what you can get back on it. So, but we see the huge jump is between the 4 and 5 bedrooms. So that is one cool thing. Now, how I personally like to use the statistical CMA is, I'm going to go back to the beginning, is I like to run it for everything that is sold like in the last 6 months or the last year, and just see where properties are selling. So we're going to click on quick search. And we're going to do just sold. And I'm going to go back 6 months. Maybe I'd go back 3 months, depends on how hot your market is, but we're just going to go back to the last 6 months. I now have 1,755 results. I'm going to break this down. Remember that group by statistical CMA? I'll show it in a second, but I'm going to break that down by subdivision. So let's see, what are the hot subdivisions? So I'm going to go up to CMA. Now, because we have 450, it will only do the statistical CMA. So I'm going to use all results. And that's what I mean. It's more than 150, it automatically selects this, and these two are grayed out. So we're going to click on next step. Okay, so we'll do the meaning calculation, and this is that thing that I just talked about. This is what I wanted you to write down, the group this statistical CMA by. This is the important thing to focus on when we're doing stat CMA, because we're going to go down to subdivision right here, subdivision. And if once we view this, this will show the sales in the last 6 months for each subdivision alphabetically. So this is some pretty cool information. So it's going to take a little bit of time to load up. And then there we go. So let's scroll down to, we see a subdivision that has quite a bit of sales. So Arbor Point had 14 sales, and the median price was $244.9. Let's just make sure that's the list price and the sold price, and the list price ratio. So it is they're getting what they're asking for, and then you have the square footage, the list price per square foot, the sold price per square foot, and then we should have days on market and cumulative days on market. Let me just double check to make sure that's right. Yep. So list price, total heated square footage, list price per sold price, days on market, and cumulative days on market. The difference between days on market versus cumulative is if you have something listed multiple times and or like by different agents, it would have the cumulative number would be with both. And we'll keep going. Let's see if we can find one that has even more than 14. I'm assuming the cherry area, we're going to have something a bit more. Okay, we have Cherry Hill has 31, so that's some great information. Now, why is this important? Well, when I was the MLS instructor in Prescott, I had one of my members would come to me and he'd take all my classes, and he was a new member. And so one thing that he decided to do is he didn't have any clients yet. So he wanted to find out the hot areas. So he had me teach him how to do this, and he would look at the 2 or 3 top subdivisions that were selling. And a lot of times the new agents, they have the opportunity to work open houses for the more seasoned agents. And a lot of people would look at this and think, oh, that's a drag. But he's like, no, this is great. He's like, I can find out what the hot areas are. And he would volunteer for all the open houses in these hot areas. And because he would take all of my classes, he knew how to use the portal. He knew how to do a bunch of advanced searching. He got very proficient at FlexMLS. So he was at that kitchen counter like I talked about yesterday. People would come in, he'd plug in their information. He was getting leads from these open houses. It wasn't even his house that he was working, but he was working it for someone else, and he was getting all these potential clients, and he was actually ended up getting sales from that. He would meet people, he'd show him all these fancy tech skills he learned from the classes, and he would focus on those subdivisions where are they hot, volunteer for those open houses, and then get someone would come in, maybe they weren't interested in that house, but he'd get their information, he'd plug it in, give them access to the portal. It only took like 30 seconds. He'd follow up in 3 or 4 days later and say, oh, it looks like you're interested in that. That's what we talked about yesterday. And yesterday was recorded. I'm not sure when Tommy will have it live so you can watch it if you didn't see it. But I would recommend watching that, especially the portal section, so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about here. So this is just a great idea of, okay, what are the hot subdivisions? And if you wanted to work them, this show you where to focus. Excuse me. So let's go through this one more time. So for the statistical CMA, what we're focusing on is basic number crunching. I just want to see what numbers are going on where. So to do this, I can do a quick search. And then the different examples we used is we focused on just a specific subdivision. I'm going to do Cherry Hill this time. And we're going to look at active, pending, solds. We'll do everything in the last 6 months. Just want to get an idea. Okay, what are 2 bedrooms going for? 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, or maybe we'll keep it 12 months, just so we keep our numbers higher. Go up to CMA. I'm going to use all the results. Do statistical CMA. We will do the median calculation. And in one second, I'm just going to check my phone to make sure there's no text or emails that have come in. Looks like nothing. Those are from Tommy, in case the questions that you're sending in, because I can't see the questions panel. I'm going to switch this status and make sure you check your notes. You remember to write this down. The group, the statistical CMA. This is the power function. This is the important part of the stat CMA, is how you group things. So I'm going to do bedrooms. Click on view. And we have 3 or 4 beds. So just to register 3 and 4 beds in Cherry Hill, we see 182,000 versus 195,000. So there really is not much of a difference between the 3 and the 4, but also there's only happens to be 4 bedrooms. So that's kind of interesting. But the one I really like to do, and we will go back to our search results, is we are going to look for everything that has closed in the last 6 months or last 12 months, all through your Northwest Mississippi MLS, and see, okay, what are the hot areas? So I'm going to change the status to sold. I'm going to go back 6 months. And then I'm going to, again, I'm not going to break down by subdivision now. I'll do the breakdown by subdivision once I get into the actual CMA. So we got 1,756. I'm going to go up to CMA. Use all results. And like I said before, if you have more than 150 results, it's automatically going to default to just the stat CMA. You can't choose those other options, which is fine, because that full CMA was the subject property, which we did in the first hour, which our example was our client purchased in 2012. They want to list the property now and see what they can get for it. QuickCMA, we did that at the beginning of this hour, which was the 2 examples. You have open houses, you're going to see 4 or 5. You want a cover sheet that you print off for your client, or the other example being your client's looking to buy in a certain subdivision. There's 15, 20 different active listings. You just want to get all those listings side by side so they can kind of narrow down their search. But right now we're focusing on the statistical CMA. So the statistical CMA here, we have almost 1,800 results. We want to see a breakdown by subdivision. So this group, this statistical CMA by, we're going to change this to subdivision so we get to see what are the hot areas. Scroll down, see Arbor Point had 14 sales. And obviously, it's not just the sales. It'll actually give you some information about, square footage, days on market, that kind of thing. Brayborn, we did that earlier, but let's go back down to Cherry Tree had 20, Cherry Tree Park had 28, and Cherry Hill had 31. So you get to see, those average or median prices if we ran the median, and then we have sold price to list price ratio, the square footage, the list price per square foot, the sold price per square foot, days on market, and then the cumulative days on market. So I found this is pretty interesting information. And like I said before, I found this was really helpful when I had one of my members when I was in Prescott. He wanted to work the open houses. He was new. He wanted to work for the seasoned agents because, a lot of them had way too many open houses they couldn't work. He saw this as an opportunity. Some of the newer agents like, oh, darn, I have to work another open house. I'm not going to learn anything. He figured out this was a great opportunity to practice his people skills, get out in front of people, and he would meet people. They'd come in. Let me get your information. Let me set you up in the portal. This portal is live, up-to-date information, and I can help you, track what you're looking at so I can help you find properties. And he got actual clients from that. So he did that by just showing up to classes and learning how to use QuickCMA. He's figured out that this technology, a lot of people think, oh, this is just another thing I have to learn. He saw it as, oh, no, this is an opportunity for me to be more efficient, to target my work so I can spend more time actually selling. And he did. He did quite well his first year just by learning how to use QuickCMA. So that is the statistical CMA. So what we're going to do next is we're going to focus on dashboards, the stats dashboard. So I'm going to click on Flex MLS to return back to my default dashboard. And you notice I talked about this yesterday, but watch your hover text. You may not have realized that Flex MLS, this button right here, brings you back to your default dashboard. So my default dashboard is MLS. Yours may be different. And what I mean by that is if I click on this MLS and you see this down arrow or chevron right here, whenever you see this in the system, it means there's a drop down. There is more options. So I'm going to click on MLS. I see agent dashboard, home, or searches. Your dashboard may be different. This is a testing account, but if I go to the agent dashboard, you'll notice that you have different gadgets that are available. And then if I were to go to the home, same thing, different gadgets. They may take up the full screen or half the screen. But if you want to change your dashboard to one that is default, go to customize, and there's a make default option. So I'm going to keep the MLS as my default, but if you wanted to change that, you would click on make default. But what we're going to do is before we get into the stats in the next hour, we're going to look at creating a stats dashboard. So the stats dashboard is going to be in front of us. It's going to be like one of these right here. Now, it's not something you print or it's not something you email your client. It's just kind of like a snapshot of what's going on in a certain area. So to create a stats dashboard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to customize, and I'm going to add a new dashboard right here. Again, watch what I did. In the upper right corner, I click on customize, and I'm going to add a new dashboard. Give it a second to load. And so when I do that, it gives me something called recommended dashboards. And I'm going to scroll down because the stats dashboard I'm looking for is right down here. It's called the market stats. It says a set of statistical gadgets, absorption rate, prices, inventory, sale, original list price ratio, sold days on the market, and volume. So I'm going to click on add dashboard. And so now it's added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's added 6 new gadgets. So these look really nice, and this is something, yeah, again, you're going to look at. It's a snapshot, but you're not going to email these or print them off. This is something that is for you. And the next hour, we'll actually be looking at creating stats, the things that you could, email to your client or, tweak it a little bit more. But I want you to pay very close attention to what I'm going to explain now. So this absorption rate gadget. This absorption rate gadget is for everything in Northwest Mississippi MLS. And so we see an absorption rate is about 2 months right now. So that is a good thing. That means it is a seller's market, more or less. So how that works is generally it's defined that anywhere between 0 to 4 months is a seller's market, meaning the seller it's beneficial for the seller. 4 to 5 is more or less a neutral market based on months. And then 5 and above is a buyer's market. So the buyer's going to get more, it's more beneficial to them because the properties aren't selling as quickly. And you'll notice there's been a trend to drop down. So properties are going pretty quickly right now in your MLS. But this is fascinating for all of Northwest Mississippi, but that covers a really large geographic area. So you may find that, okay, that really just, that's not really specific to me because you may be working like, remember that Cherry Hill, we saw a lot of sold listings. You might do a lot of business in Cherry Hill. And I assume Cherry Hill and Cherry Tree and Cherry Tree South are like probably next to each other. Again, I'm not an expert of your area, so I don't know that for sure. But you may want to have an absorption rate that just shows Cherry Hill because that's where you work. So all of these gadgets right here, the absorption rate, the inventory, the sold days on market, prices, sale to original list price ratio. This is all for everything in Northwest Mississippi, especially that sale to original list price ratio. We're seeing about 97. Well, remember when we were looking earlier in our CMA, we were seeing actually 100% or 99%. People were getting what they were asking for. So you may want to customize these gadgets for the areas that you work. So that's what we're going to do with the absorption rate. Watch what I do. Pay close attention. When I went to customize, I added a new dashboard called Market Stats, which we're looking at right now. But I now want to customize these individual gadgets. So this absorption rate gadget, I'm going to customize because right now it shows me everything in Northwest Mississippi. So I'm going to click on the three dots and then click on settings right here. Three dots and then click on settings. You know, when I do this, it gives me this box that says location, and then I'm going to click inside this location box. Pay close attention to what I'm going to say. What people do is think these are the only options. No, these are just ones that have been run recently. So if I were to type in Cherry, and I believe it was Cherry Hill, I'm going to double click and then click on save. Now, listen to this carefully. You can only do one subdivision or one city, one county at a time here. If you want to do multiples, and the example I gave a little bit earlier is if Cherry Hill and Cherry Tree and Cherry Tree South were all like side by side and they were very comparable, you could create a map shape for those areas and then run that map shape instead. I'm going to do that in a little bit, but just to let you know, you can only select one option. So we do subdivision of Cherry Hill. I'm going to click on save. And now this is going to show us the absorption rate for Cherry Hill. Now, this is why it's fascinating to break it down by, like, say, a subdivision, is we notice, okay, absorption rate back in July, it was 4 months. It was getting very, very close to a neutral market there. And now it's much, much nicer. It's closer down to 1 month. Now, there could be multiple reasons for that. It could be, you know, new properties of you have new construction and they're just being bought up like that. You know, I don't know the area, but as an expert, as a realtor, this is the kind of thing that you could use and really get a good idea. So we have the absorption rate for the subdivision of Cherry Hill. Now you'll notice it says residential. This right now takes up 3 on a screen. I can always go to customize, change the layout so this takes up half of the screen, each gadget, and then watch what I mean. We'll go where it's half. And it's half. There we go. I might find I like this breakdown better, so it really spreads it out. And these are points. So if I hover, so I have the absorption rate for subdivision of Cherry Hill Residential. Now what I'm going to do is I want to add another absorption rate gadget, and this time I'm going to do it just for the city of Hernando. So you can do as many gadgets as you'd like. It could be a subdivision, a city, a county, a zip code, or even a map shape. So we're going to end up doing actually 3 absorption rate gadgets. So we're going to go up to customize. We're going to add a new gadget, not a new dashboard. We already added the market stats dashboard. I don't want a new one. I just want to add a gadget to this current market stats dashboard. So I'm going to click on add gadgets. And let's see, down here, statistics. I'm going to do absorption rate. And it says absorption rate is already on this dashboard. That's fine. I want to add another. We're going to end up doing 3 total for this class. Return back to our dashboard. And anytime you add a new dashboard gadget, it's going to be down at the bottom. So I'm going to wait till I get those 4 directionals, use my left mouse button, and I'm going to move this one up. So this is the absorption rate for the subdivision of Cherry Hill, where this right now is everything in the MLS. You notice there really isn't much of a variation because we're looking at the whole thing. But if I look at a certain subdivision, I can see there is quite a bit of a difference. So if I want to customize this one, I can go up to the 3 dots, go to settings, and then click inside this location box. I could do a different property type, but I find residential makes the most sense. Click inside this box. Again, pay close attention. These are not the only options. These are just the most commonly used ones. So I could do something like Green Book, or I could type in Hernando. I want to see the entire city of Hernando. So we're going to do Hernando city. And we're going to click on save. So this is going to be the absorption rate for the city of Hernando. And because it is an entire city, we'll notice the absorption rate is pretty close. There's not a lot of variation from all of Northwest Mississippi, whereas the Cherry Hill is quite a bit of variation. So actually, let's edit this one and we'll try to do the Green Book, just if we can get some nice variation. And so this is the absorption rate for the subdivision green book. This one started out hot last year, but it's starting to go up a little bit, but still under 1.5 months. That's a good absorption rate. That's a nice seller's market. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna create another absorption rate gadget, but instead of selecting just the one subdivision or the one city, I'm gonna draw a map shape, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm gonna right click this quick search. So we open up the quick search into a new tab. And then I'm going to switch to the map tab. Give it a second to load. Okay. So I see something called Dickens Place in Pinehurst. I'm actually going to draw a map shape and all this. Now, this isn't arbitrary. This might include other subdivisions. I don't know your area, but just to show you how this would work. So I'm going to click on my freeform polygon, and I'm going to click all of this. And every time I click, it gives me a point. And when I'm done, I stop moving my mouse and I double click. So I'm actually going to call this shape Dickens Place Pinehurst. So once I've drawn a shape, I can click on the polygon. And if you're curious about what I'm doing, we covered this yesterday and that was recorded. We're going to edit this polygon, and I'm just going to call it dplace Pinehurst and give it a color. I'm going to save it to map overlay. I had a map shape called called Gated Communities. I'm actually going to create a new one just called My Favorite Subdivisions. So once I've created that, this shape is now available to use in a gadget, a stats gadget. So I'm just going to refresh my market stats one just so it's been updated. So we have the absorption rate for subdivision of Cherry Hill. We have the absorption rate for the subdivision of Greenbook. And I'm now going to go to customize. If I want to add that new gadget, that's really easy. Click on add gadgets. I know that it's going to be down in the statistics section. And so we're going to add another absorption rate one. And return back to my dashboard. So anytime I add a new gadget, it's going to be down at the bottom. So I'm just going to scroll down. Get the 4 directionals, use my left mouse button and hold it down and just move this up. One more. So absorption rate for Cherry Hill for Greenbook. And now this is, again, everything for Northwest Mississippi. That's why you don't see a lot of variation, because there's a lot of listings that's looking at where if you're going to do this for price or, sale to original list price ratio, if you narrow it to a division or even a map shape, you might get, better information based on what you're looking for. So I'm going to customize this absorption rate gadget by clicking on the 3 dots. I'm going to go to settings. Click inside that location box. And again, these aren't the only options. It's just the most commonly used ones. And I'm going to type in what I call dplace right here. My favorite subdivisions, dplace Pinehurst, double click. Now, you might actually want to call it Dickens Place just so it's easier for you to tell. But I'm going to click on Save. And so what do I have now? Absorption rate for my favorite subdivisions, dplace Pinehurst. Give this a second to load. Now, it's using a map shape, so it may take a little bit longer to load as opposed to a defined parameter like a city or a subdivision. But this should load up the absorption rate. And for those shapes, so whatever, there we go. So we noticed that it's basically 2.5 and it's starting to get a little hot. So we don't see too much variation for this shape, but I just want you to understand what I'm doing here. These gadgets only allow you to select one option, either a subdivision, a city, a zip code, or a map shape. But because it allows you to use that map shape, you can choose a map shape that's been drawn across 2, 3, 4 subdivisions, however you want to define something, or it could be east of a certain highway, It could be close to water. Whatever you want to do, you can draw that and then use that for a shape in the future. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do more stats CMA, but we're gonna start with a completely blank dashboard, and then I'm gonna show you how to add individual gadgets, because maybe you want to do, we're gonna do sold days on market for like say 3 or 4 different subdivisions. So watch what I do. I'm gonna go up to customize. We're gonna add a new dashboard. So this market stats already has 6 gadgets already there, ready to be customized. We're gonna add a dashboard, a blank one, and I'm gonna call this one sold days on market for subdivisions. And I'm gonna create this dashboard. And when I create this dashboard, it's blank. There's gonna be nothing there. That's fine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go down to statistics right here. And what I mean by that is if I return to the dashboard, it's blank. So that's a sold days on market for subdivisions. So I'm gonna click here to add gadgets. I'm gonna go to the statistics section right here. And I said I wanna do the sold days on market. So click on it once, it says added, twice, 3 times. We'll just do 4. Again, you can add as many as you'd like. I'm gonna return to the dashboard. So it's gonna bring me now to this my new gadget, or my new dashboard called sold days on market for subdivisions. Let's use our left mouse button and just drag these over. This is for everything in the MLS. So, you know, you see some variation, but I want to really focus on certain subdivisions. So I'm going to click on the 3 dots, settings. I'm going to do average cumulative days on market or days on market. Let's do Greenbrook. And then for this one, we're going to do, so you see quite a bit of variation for Greenbrook. So that's pretty fascinating. We'll do Cherry Hill. And so obviously with Cherry Hill, if there were no sales, there's not going to have data for that month. Let's do Brayborn. And so something like that, there could be bad data because it's jumped up so high, or there just maybe for some reason it's increased that much. And then we're going to go to sold days on market, settings, click inside the location box. And this time we'll do Cherry Tree Park South or Cherry Tree South. Click on save. So now I've customized these 4 gadgets, and there just happens to be really no sales in Cherry Tree South in the last year. So let's change that to, click on the X to get rid of it. Again, you can only select one at a time. Let's try Cherry Tree. And there we see. So this one has huge variation in the days on market. So that is how you do stat CMAs. So let's spend the next 5 minutes reviewing what we covered for this hour, and then the next hour we will be doing some stats reports. So we click back on Fleximus to return back to my default dashboard, which is my MLS. So we did a QuickCMA. QuickCMA, what I basically did is I used the 2 examples. You have open houses, you want a cover sheet, or you have a client who just says they want to live in a certain area. They have no idea what they're looking for. There's 15 or 20 active listings. You just want to give those listings side by side. So let's just do subdivision of Cherry Hill. And we'll do it because a lot of those are pending. Got 8, so that works. We're going to go up to CMA. We'll use all the results. Give it a second to load. We're going to do the quick CMA. So remember, the full CMA, that is if you have a subject property. Quick CMA, I like to do the cover page and then the side-by-side comparison. If you want to have a report added to it, you can check this box. And I'm going to remove the statistical summary. We're going to click on view, or I could download it, give my headshot, choose looking good. And then those listings are just side by side, give you space information. So that's the QuickCMA. Now the statistical CMA, this is for just number crunching. The example I like to use is you want to see what subdivisions are hot. Excuse me. So I'll do a quick search. And we're going to go to sold. And we'll do everything that's sold in the last 6 months. So we have almost 1,800. Go up to CMA. We'll use all results. Again, if there's more than 150, it automatically defaults to that statistical CMA. Next step. Give it a second to load. Now, the key things I like to do here is the median calculation, because sometimes that can be vastly different from an average calculation. But I asked you to write this down. The group, the statistical CMA. This is the important part. This is where you actually get to do stuff. So we're going to go down to subdivision, and I'm going to click on view, and this will now give me, for the last 6 months, these are the subdivisions and where their sales are. So the example I used earlier in class is one of my former members who wanted to focus on the hot areas, working those open houses for other more seasoned agents, because he saw it as an opportunity to pick up clients, and he did. So then we focused on the statistical dashboards. So return back to my dashboard. I decided a new dashboard called Market Stats. So I went up to Customize, Add a Dashboard, and if I scroll down, there's one called Market Stats. This has these 6 gadgets, and then I just clicked on the 3 dots in the upper right corner of the gadget, went to Settings to customize each one. Otherwise, I have an option to add a blank dashboard, and then I can decide which gadgets I want. So let's just take a look at those dashboards that we created. If I go to in the upper left corner, MLS, I go to my Market Stats one. These are the 6, but I customized them by adding subdivisions and did 3 absorption rates. Because by default, like this sale to original list price ratio, this is everything in the MLS. You notice there's almost no variation. It's all about between 97 and 98. Where if you were to run this for certain subdivisions, you may see it is very seasonal. So you could maybe tell your clients, maybe we want to list it at this point because you're getting more money during that month. And then sold days on market for subdivisions, we just wanted to see the sold days on market because there's a huge change in. Okay, so we're at 10:50. We're going to start up again at 11:02. So please get some coffee, pet your animals. I'm going to play with my cat, or my parents' cat, and get some coffee, and then we will be doing some statistical reports at 11:02.